Salam, salam. Inshallah, everyone is doing well. So, a couple of days ago, maybe about a week ago, I made a post on social media commemorating my wife's birthday. And I usually do that every year. Not necessarily, but typically I do that. And I got a lot of comments, private comments. Of course, there are a lot of public comments, but there are a lot of private comments asking me to talk about marriage and our relationship personally, which obviously I'm not going to do because it's no one's business other than me and my wife. But it got me thinking about a few things. So the first thing I want to say is that if you want my thoughts on relationships at a deep level, I encourage you to take the relationships course that I have on the Making Sense of Islam platform. Go to the website under courses, and it's all one bundle. It's just a monthly subscription. I mean, you could subscribe just for a month and take the course, and unsubscribe. It's up to you. But I'm not going to repeat what I say there because there I kind of do a deep dive. But some of the comments got me a little bit worried because, first of all, marriage takes a lot of work all the time. And it's work that one is supposed to look forward to because it is based on love and mercy. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the core of the marriage relationship. He says that He وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Allah ta'ala has created between us love and mercy. So, yes, it's a lot of work all the time because you're with each other all the time, and if Allah blesses you with children, then you form a family, so you're constantly working at that. But it's something that its substrate is love and mercy. Usually we say that and we just kind of keep going, but that's the answer to everyone's question about having a successful marriage. Most people that I see today, the substrate, the denominator of their equation of marriage is that they have assumed that this is some kind of like business venture. So when people come to me, they talk about rights and responsibilities. I'm like, time out. Rights and responsibilities, it's not a business. You haven't formed a company and this 50-50 split. And unfortunately in the modern world, especially in the Western world, where everything is turned into like a commercial venture, unfortunately relationships are looked at that way. People talk about the tax benefits of I'm an American, so they talk about the tax benefits of filing joint tax returns as a married couple versus individual, etc., etc., etc. I mean, those are tertiary, secondary, tertiary, or beyond at best. That's not what marriage is based on. If you're going about your relationship thinking about what I'm going to get out of it, what my responsibilities are, what her responsibilities are, or vice versa, I would argue that you are headed for an unhappy marriage because that's not the basis of marriage. When two people get together and they form a home. The home in the Arabic language is called al-maskan. We call that al-masdar al-mimi. Maskan means it is the place where there is sukoon, where there is tranquility. Wherever you two may be. I mean, sometimes my wife and I, not often, but sometimes we get to go away a little bit. Now that the kids are older, alhamdulillah, and we're still a home. We still feel like we're home together, even though we're traveling, we're in transit, we might be tired, jet lagged, whatever the case may be, but we're still a home. And because I travel a lot for work, and oftentimes, unfortunately, I'm away from my wife and children for extended periods of time. We communicate. We use technology to communicate and things like that. We have a family chat for the family, for the children, me and my wife, etc. And it's a way for us to continue that homely feeling. That can only, your home is not based on, I don't sit at night with my wife with an Excel sheet and we go over the finances and things like that. It's not a business. It's a marriage. If you think of life, again, just to come back to it, if you think of your marriage and your relationship from the business terms, and by the way, people might be thinking of it in business terms unbeknownst to them, you're not going to have a flourishing relationship. The other thing I want to say is that marriage has to be based on first principles. When my wife and I met, I wrote an article about this. I think when I changed the website, it might have dropped. I'll try to repost it, and if I do, just check out my social media accounts. But when we got married, we talked about what are our core values. We had a little bit of an advantage that we've known each other for many years prior to when we decided to get married. So we met when we were teenagers, which is a whole other story. But the case, I think we have a podcast episode, my wife and I. It actually might have been the 100 mark podcast episode. I think we talk a little bit about how we met. But I knew her and her family, and she knew me, and she knew my family. But we had a talk about what is important to us. And at the deepest level, I believe, and I have to bring my wife to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that's what she's going to say, we have the same values. Because we have the same values, we are always able to come back to the same values. Because we have the same values, we're all going towards the same direction. Now, I might go to the direction this way, she might go this way. There might be some ups and downs and things like that. Sometimes we clash if we're, weaving in and out of each other, but we're still headed toward the same direction. And what that means is that when we have difficult moments, and look, we have many difficult moments. I mean, I'm not a saint, she's not a saint. We try to do our best. We are always able to remind ourselves of those values and therefore make sure that we're headed towards the same goal. Because we have children, it's a little bit easier because a lot of these first values manifest in the decisions that we make for our children. And alhamdulillah, because we have the same set of values, we are headed towards the same direction vis-a-vis our children. I'm not talking just about Islamic values. Obviously, we're both Muslim, practicing Muslims, and that's the number one thing for us. But things about our children, their education, their health, their time, their friends, their social life, family obligations, etc., etc., etc. Those type of things present decision points throughout the days and weeks and months and years and decades, and therefore you can manifest those principles that way. So that's the second thing that I would say is, other than love and mercy, the second thing is you have to make sure that you have those same values so that you're going towards the same direction. Now, a lot of times people, they feel stuck and they almost force themselves to accept a marriage situation, but deep down inside they're not sharing the same values. And if you do that, if you compromise on those values from the beginning, then your marriage is just going to be a series of compromises, and at some point either one person will give in and forego their values to be with the other person, which I think is very sad. It's almost a form of suicide if you think about it, killing your own identity, or the marriage will break. Both situations are very sad. So I firmly believe that having the same values, the same first principles, it's a concept I talk a lot about on my platform, makes you sailing towards the same destination. Another practical tool is we try our best, and I think maybe my wife would disagree a little bit with me here, but I try my best at least to make sure that we don't go to sleep when we're upset with one another. I think maybe that annoys her a little bit because sometimes I keep her up. Usually I'm the one saying sorry for this, that, or the other thing. But it is important, not literally don't sleep, but the point is don't let the thing linger. If you messed up, you got to say that you're sorry. There's no point of digging your heels in and I'm right and you have to apologize. That's not, again, it's not like employer, employee, you have to apologize, you're being reviewed, annual review. That kind of stuff doesn't work in a relationship. You have to live and let live. And you have to forgive one another. And most importantly, when you screw up, you got to say, I'm really sorry. I missed the mark. Inshallah, I promise to do better. Please forgive me. I love you. Inshallah, I pray, I ask Allah Ta'ala to give me the strength not to make that mistake again. That's very important. And as silly as it sounds, most people don't do that. Most people just they kind of inflict the wound and then they keep going. They don't really want to address it. So that's another point, I think, about relationships. The other thing I want to say also, I guess this is like the fourth point, is there are traditional roles, I believe, it's part of my value system and my wife's value system. There are traditional roles that I play as the man, as a father, as a husband, and there are traditional roles that my wife plays as a woman, as a wife, as a mother. And we have to respect those roles and live up to those roles. By those roles, I don't mean the to-do list that, this person is cooking and cleaning. That's not even, I don't even care about that stuff because actually that's not one of the roles and responsibilities of marriage. I mean, you're going to eat somehow, you have to clean somehow, but both of you have to do that. I'm talking about sort of in general. So I'll just give you a small example. One of the things that we do when we need to make a decision as a family, let's say the decision involves the whole family. So all of us will pray an istikhara prayer and everyone will default to what my istikhara prayer is because I'm the father or I'm the husband in that case. But it's in consultation, we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala together, but somebody's got to make the decision. And then it's my decision and I have to live up to that responsibility. So I have a double burden to make sure that I make the right decision, to make sure that my istikhara is truly an istikhara, I'm not just like my nafs is in it, so on and so forth. And again, I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they don't want to recognize the traditional roles that people play in a relationship. I believe as the man, I have to be more forgiving. I believe as a man, I have to be more understanding. I believe as a man, I have to be, we have to both be equally loving, but it's not my way or the highway. I don't believe that that's the way the relationship is supposed to be. Now, if you don't believe in those traditional roles, and if you have adopted other roles, which I'm not going to necessarily say are wrong, I disagree with them personally. I mean, I don't conduct my personal life that way. But if you do that, you have to also deal with the stuff that comes with it, which is they can lead to being ostracized, they can lead to being lonely, they could lead to being pig-headed, they could lead to a lot of conflict, and ultimately they break the marriage. But if everyone thinks that they are in charge of everything all the time, then, too many, as we say in English, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. So part of that is understanding the traditional roles. I'm very happy to have those traditional roles, informed by my cultural background as an Arab American, but also most importantly and more importantly, informed by my religious beliefs as a practicing Sunni Muslim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, the greatest blessing I have. I hope people that are Muslim also feel the same way. And therefore, when I want to look at those roles, what those roles are, those are the sources that I go to. How did the Prophet ﷺ deal with these type of situations? The luminaries of our civilization and our tradition, the scholars, the Sahaba, the saintly people, so on and so forth. And you find all of these little gems here and there. So if I read that Imam al-Nawawi said something, I'm just making this up, I'm like, okay, for me that's important because Imam al-Nawawi is, I put him on top of my head. I'm a Shafi'i by training, and Imam al-Nawawi is a big deal for that reason, but he's also a big deal for the ummah because of all of the good work that he did. If Imam al-Ghazali said something about a relationship, I'm going to listen to that because that's my paradigm. That's where how my worldview is informed by connecting with those authorities, and the same thing with my spouse. If we don't have that, it's kind of related to the first principles. If we don't have that, then the roles, the natural default roles of how things go are going to be disjointed. The last thing I'm going to say is you have to each have your own life. Neither do I want her to live inside my life, nor does she want me to live inside her life. We have to respect that we are different people, that we have different interests, that we have different lives. Different interests, I don't mean, again, not related to the first principles and the values. I'm just talking about in general. My wife likes to do activity A, B, and C. And I like to do activities C, D, and E. So maybe C we do together, but she has her own stuff that she does A and B with, and her friend group, or her family, or her sisters, or whatever, colleagues, and same thing with me on my stuff. That's really important, is to respect those type of natural differences. Allah Ta'ala has created us different, has created us with different inclinations, interests, and we should support one another in developing those, because if a person lives up to their full potential, they're going to be the best version of themselves. I want my wife to be the best version of herself, and I know without doubt she wants me to be the best version of myself. She supports me like she supported me when I was doing my PhD, which is a very long and lonely process, and a lot of sacrifices were required, but she wanted me to get that. Happily, when she came to my defense, she was so supportive, and she came to my graduation. It meant a lot to me to have my wife and children there, and to be there for that victory, that win that I got. And then I want her to do the same thing and support her to go to grad school and do the same kind of sacrifice that she gave me. And then again, we go to her graduation and support that, and we're genuinely happy for the other person. That only happens when you respect that the other person. It's not like a remote control. You don't pick up a remote control and you're like telling your spouse what to do. You got to let them develop their own interests, as long as, of course, nothing is haram. That goes without saying. So these are some unscripted, I have no papers in front of me, unscripted remarks about some of my general thinking about specifically husband and wife. Again, if you want more details on how I think about relationships in general, take my course on the Making Sense of Islam platform. I hope that makes sense and helps. Talk to you soon. Be well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.